That's the end of this. Mauro, I leave it to you.
So by default, we should have plenty of panelists talking about, casualties and or marine insurance. I mean, if I follow the list, I should leave the micro to Roberto Cazzulo. And if you have, a question.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say that I learned a lot this morning from the speakers, and I really thank all of them for very informative presentations. I'd like to touch a few points. Filippo Lorenzon and Julian Clark started talking about the lessons to be learned from casualties. And they explain how the process should be and how difficult it is to go inside a serious casualty. We all know all around what kind of process is to study a casualty. Francesco Siccardi then mentioned the fact that consider the role of underwriters contributing to safety, and following my colleague, I would contribute to the same role of all parties contributing to safety. And he mentioned an important point about the fact of prevention is better than cure, or prevention of claims is better than reacting to casualties or claims. And Alessandro Morelli, and it is the last comment, mentioned the fact that from a hull and machinery viewpoint, it's important to start another approach for risk management and loss prevention that would require more transparency of data. He was wondering why the Paris Memorandum of Understanding has not published or is not delivering a relatively simple information like the ship risk profile. That is an information that is in fact a guiding factor for targeting vessels from port state control viewpoint. So my comment, and it is a little bit provocative, is in fact the fact that in my view we should move from casualties to accident, incidents, to data that can be very helpful from point of view of risk prevention and risk management. And what is now the level of transparency for the amount of data that this industry has? And on the transparency, there is perhaps still more to be done. We all know that Equasis is a database where all class societies offer link to their own database. There are not possibilities, for instance, to have access to insurers' database, to charterer database, and perhaps even the class society database that is provided through Equasis could be improved. So in thinking about the future, and just mentioning the fact that the IMO Secretary General next year would like to organize an IMO Future Safety Conference where all industry will be present, including certainly underwriters industry. The question could be, what kind of data are we expected to provide if we want to give more transparency? Are these data owned by the ship owners, or who are the other owners of this data? And what are the legal issues that have to be faced to make this data more available? And I'd like just finish to mention that industry presently, following also some of the most recent casualties, are considering how to move forward, how to adopt voluntarily measures in addition to what regulations may establish. A lot of these voluntary measures are about risk assessment and require a lot of data.
Okay, so Chris.
I'd like to make one comment. We've concentrated a lot on casualties talking about the ship. But actually, if you look at a lot of the major marine disasters in the last few years, it hasn't been a problem with the vessel. It's actually been a problem with the crew. And if you look at the groundings, the collisions, some of these have been the biggest casualties. And I think that we mustn't overlook the issue of... Sorry, I thought I was on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, it sounds like the microphone is not working. The issue has been, with many major casualties, actually been crew-orientated. The groundings, the collisions, and we're slightly overlooking, I think, in the discussion this morning, the human element that is involved in a lot of these major casualties. And when you come to asking for statistics, it gets quite difficult because, of course, the crew can be from any country, and there is no, you can't say crew from that country caused more casualties. It's the standard that the individual crew is selected. And I sometimes rather facetiously say to ship owners, why have you put this guy you've never met on board your $100 million ship? Would you choose somebody you've never met to drive your Rolls Royce? Absolutely not. So why do you let somebody drive your $100 million ship without actually doing proper checks into their background, etc.? So, as I said, I think there is a tendency to overlook the human element in these major disasters. I believe, and I'm not involved, and I hope if I'm wrong, I apologize, but the arena is a human element casualty, for example, and that's led to one of the largest claims on the international group and has spooked the reinsurance market, because there is a relatively small ship with a ginormous wreck removal, and it's purely, my understanding, human element. That's the sort of comment I'd like to make.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Alessandro, would you have anything to add on the matter of the data which can be in exchange with Classification Society and the other bodies? Who cares about loss prevention?
Yes, I think, in fact, linking to what has just been said, it is true that the major losses are very often linked to the human element, but I was surprised when we heard during Ayumi that the major part of total costs comes from attritional. The attritional are the ones which are perhaps less linked to the human element, not necessarily said, of course, but it is those claims which, in my view, can be more easily prevented. And that's why, during this past year, I've always very much insisted on having data to be available. And I rely very much, I do not want to overestimate the importance of these information which comes now from the new inspection regime, but this element of the ship risk profile and the side concept of the company performance are, in my view, very important as an additional element. As I say, I do not think we have to overestimate these ones. We do not. In other words, we are not going to underwrite our risks to appreciate the assessment of the risk on basis of those information. But they will add something. And this is something which I officially put forward during the UMI conference, because before that I had asked both to the EQUASIS and to the Paris MO, since 2 years ago in the Zurich conference, I had invited at that time Corinne Droppers, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the Paris MO, and she had given a very interesting presentation concerning the new inspection regime. Now, I had asked them, why do not provide the information concerning ship risk profile and risk and company performance to the industry. This is something which can be worked out, because the Paris MO has calculators about this, but this is quite a time-exhausting process. I mean, you can't have somebody who, according to a number of information, works out these values. These are values which would be available, and the answers has been different, because EQUASIS told me we would be ready to do this. I proposed to make them available on the EQUASIS pages where there is the ship info. They would be available, but they say these information are the ownership of the Paris MO. And the Paris MO, on the other hand, was not so much in favor of publishing them. That's why I put officially the question to the Ayumi, and the Ayumi Executive Committee took it on board. So through the new organism which has been launched in Ayumi this year, the Political Forum, this specific issue, that is to say, asking the Paris MO to provide this information, will be officially addressed.
Okay, thank you, Alessandro. Julian, Francesco, any legal issue on what it has been asked?
I think the point made about more disclosure and transparency into casualty history is quite an interesting one. What do we do internationally when there's a major disaster or incident in order to try to learn lessons? And the answer to that is public inquiry. And as a result of a public inquiry, although the process takes a long time, you get legislative change. You don't see that in shipping. Of course, what we do see in shipping is a throttle hold on confidentiality. It's the reason why arbitration still has favour in front of litigation because people don't like to wash their dirty linen in public. I wonder whether we are coming to the position where, due to the increase of casualties, due to the increased cost, looking at the statistics we saw today in relation to the new box ships which are coming on stream, the ships we were talking about, the box ships, were 2,000, 3,000 TEU ships. When and if there is a casualty with an 18,000 TEU ship, what's going to happen then? Look at what's happened with the loss of life in relation to bulk carrier losses, iron ore fines, and the fact that you could trace that back, liquefaction, which is the buzzword for the last couple of years, was actually mooted as one of the causes of the loss of the Derbyshire. And yet, where's the information that came out from that inquiry to go into the maritime community? And we also see on the horizon the danger that has been predicted about what will happen in 5 years' time with regard to the ships that came out of the greenfield Chinese yards and the condition that those ships are in. And are we moving towards, I moot this, are we moving, taking on from Roberto's suggestion, should we move to a position where the international group, you and me, set up some kind of international public inquiry force for shipping, so that on behalf of their members, their assureds, when there are casualties, there can be a confidential inquiry carried out so that the main industry groups can then circulate to their memberships and to their assureds lessons to be learned.
Yeah. Stephen.
I'm surprised because that we're talking about this in this way, because most countries, most flag states, including the UK, have a very good process of, and indeed an international obligation to investigate casualties. And certainly in the UK, the Maritime Accident Investigation Branch produce very comprehensive, no-fault reports from which are online and from which the industry, I think, do learn. I know the French have a similar system, certainly the Greek flag has a similar system. Whether we can do more to make sure the standard of those reports is much more uniform in a way that lessons can be learned across the industry, I agree there's always progress that can be made. But I think that I'm surprised that we're talking about it as if there wasn't a system in place, because as far as I'm concerned, there's a very good system, and as I say, an international obligation on flag states to produce exactly those reports, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.